This video is sponsored by Squarespace. What if I told you that there was a F.e.a.r game out there with tighter mechanics than every entry so far, and that it was free? You'd say, what's the catch, I imagine? Catch is the game's not finished, nor is it official, but it's not trying to be just another F.e.a.r game. It's only a demo, and though it is derivative, that doesn't mean it won't have an original spark. The narrative is already shaping up to be something interesting, but the combat is well past shaping up. And the demo has everything you could ever need to play with it. A full prologue level and 2 maps for Horde mode. What if I next told you that this dream project sounds like a Chinese tech demo? Trepang 2. I'm really hoping for a name change because that's not a seller, but we can start by getting it some attention. Trepang 2 has commonly been described as the F.e.a.r 2 we never got, which is a very good way of putting it. Mechanically though, it's less a spiritual successor to F.e.a.r, and more a love child between F.e.a.r and Crysis. Yeah, when you analyze the mechanics, this game is as much the last 2 Crises as it is F.e.a.r. Let's have a look. Almost exactly as in Crysis, Q and E are your 2 abilities, E being cloak, and Q not being armor, but F.e.a.r's reflex mode. Slow motion, for those of you who are unfamiliar, which allows for bullet dodging and action movie fantasies at the press of a button. Grabbing was also a fun part of all the Crysis games. In Trepang it's the same, but you need them to be first stunned with a melee, or otherwise unaware of your presence. As expected, you can still throw or kill from a grab, but unlike Crysis, you can also use them as a human shield. This opens up a litany of new tactics, most of which involve heightened aggression, because you don't have to worry as much about survivability, only your enemies and the longevity of your meat shield. Cloak is a simple concept. You turn invisible, that drains a meter. Nothing new. Reflex mode does have a few changes though, namely that killing enemies gains more reflex, even while in reflex. So in Trepang, you can keep the slow-mo going for as long as you're using it well. Reflex mode has never encouraged action-packed aggression so smartly. We're not done there. Movement is as it was in Crysis. You can sprint extremely quickly, but only for a short period. You can also slide, and if you hit enemies while doing so, they'll be knocked over. Trepang has, taken that to an extreme, you might say. For some reason, you slide faster than the speed of light and impart the force of 1,000 suns into anything you touch on the way. Yes, that is a trip. And yes, you can shoot while sliding. Yes, this is the best game ever made. Lastly, the melee comes from F.e.a.r. It's a rifle butt while standing and a jump kick while airborne. They've stuck a huge degree of tracking on the jump kick, making it almost impossible to miss, and though that does lower the skill ceiling, it also means you can reliably keep a chain of badass moments going for longer. That's a worthwhile trade-off. What isn't though, is the choice between the jump kick and the rifle butt. The tracking makes the jump kick a foregone conclusion. There's no choice to be made. The standard melee needs a little something to make it a worthwhile choice, but that's the only balancing issue I found. Of all those mechanics, that's the only flaw that isn't the result of a bug. That should give you a lot of confidence. With an elegant combination of 2 FPS titans and well-balanced abilities, I'm comfortable saying that Trepang 2 has combat on par with, if not stronger than F.e.a.r and Crysis 2 both. Those words do not sound like they can be true, but they are. A free indie game is at this level and barely anyone's even heard of it. Equally few people are recognizing that the combat is as much Crysis as it is F.e.a.r. How come? Well, you can see why by seeing. This game looks like F.e.a.r. Drab office environments, the exact same shelves, the exact same shotgun, a similar approach to gore, and even the same explosion animation. The game looks like F.e.a.r. And the free mission you get alongside the Horde mode is F.e.a.r through and through, even in terms of quality. I mean what I said, so I'm talking horror. Trepang's only attempt at horror looks at first glance like the F.e.a.r 2 school level. Are the locker doors going to suddenly spring open then? No. First thing that happens is the enemy markers go wild. But there's no enemies. Then the physics objects start chasing you. Okay, what the fuck? Then the fucking shadows start chasing you, and then the doors close. We are looking at F.e.a.r quality horror, which in my opinion isn't a very high bar, but with an air of originality that blew me away. I've never been chased by shadows before, and if that wasn't F.e.a.r enough, just strap in. The environments are offices, bleak and industrial. You can hear soulless enemy chatter as you move. There's a light mechanic where you have to turn off your flashlight to avoid detection. You can kick open doors like a pimp. But of course, none of that is why F.e.a.r is a legendary name. No, F.e.a.r is remembered for its enemies. An AI's goal in a game like this is to be believable, like another human. F.e.a.r nailed this so well that people laud its AI as if it were like Skynet. In reality, F.e.a.r presented an unparalleled level of believability because of the AI's perfect marriage with the level design and Illusion. There are two aspects of illusion which Trepang does not feature. It has enemy chatter, but it doesn't have enemy chatter that gives you the impression of communication. I'm flanking, I'm throwing a grenade, regroup, he's behind the window. The computer knows all of this, of course. All Monolith did for F.e.a.r was tie that to voice lines. They even smartly added an element of fear to enemy speech when their numbers started dropping. They argued with one another when they felt hunted, and they retreated believably too. Humans feel fear. This was one of the first FPS games to simulate it. The other aspect of illusion was smart objects. A smart object was a part of the environment that an AI could interact with to carry out its objective, like diving through a window instead of using a door. The AI treats that as just another pathway, but by doing something specific according to its environment, it gives the impression of human-like intelligence. That was the essence of smart objects. Another example would be pulling over a shelf for protection. If an AI feels threatened, it could of course retreat, but it could also create some cover. Then the shelf would be a new type of smart object. You can't walk past it anymore, so AI would need to crawl underneath it instead. Moving on from illusion, as is well known, one of the most important aspects of F.e.a.r's enemies was level design. Or should I say, it was the catalyst for optimal enemy performance. And what makes me happy is that Trepang's is on point. Extraction point on point, we're talking here. This shit is fantastic. The three core tenets of FPS level design are as follows: varied clustered cover, circular navigability, and observability. You can't expect every space to capitalize on all three, or things start looking the same, but you should be thinking of them. At a basis, most FPS arenas should have a no man's land, a significant one that a player would consider themselves to be exposed in. With this, there's always a choice to be made when using it. Is it worth running for whatever point of interest is on the other side? Or should I remain in safety? It also increases frequency of engagements with enemies as they expose themselves in it. The cover, meanwhile, should be varied, some good for some situations, some good for others, nothing so good that you can just set up shop. But the most useful of all of it should closely surround the central no man's land, meaning you're always close to the action, capable of being flanked, and you're continually adjusting to get the best shot on enemies through the emptiness. That ties into circular navigability, which simply means that you should be able to navigate in a circle around the arena, even though that often looks more like a square. This provides ample space for flanking, and numerous options for the player and enemies to take in any engagement. The rings of the arena need a window to interact with each other for this to work. You gotta have doors, lots of windows, no full-on hallways with concrete walls end to end and nothing in between. You have to be able to see the space to make decisions while you're on the move. It's also smart to be able to see the space before you've made any move. This is observability. If the enemies instantly attack you when you enter, or you can't see anything regardless, you've got no chance to think about the arena, who you're going to attack first, where the enemies are, but more importantly, if you get the first move, then you're more likely to throw yourself into the action. You'll often want to get as close to as many enemies as possible, so when you pounce, you can kill as many as you can in a very short time span. This can't happen if you can't see. It also can't happen if you're not allowed to see by being attacked instantly on entry. You don't want players staying in the entrance because they're being pinned down before they've set foot inside. But hey, don't take all this from me. Take it from one of F.e.a.r's level designers. I learned all this 2 years ago from his blog, so I can tell you, Trepang's nailing it. The cloak means you always have observability, and they pretty much never commit level design sin here. Though the free mission isn't masterfully designed, it is only a prologue, and what gives me so much confidence is the horde maps. These are clearly meant to host extremely difficult fights, and their level design excellence. Horde map 1 ticks pretty much all the boxes, only lacking in its variation. The verticality is pretty much meaningless here, and its symmetry makes things feel samey. Horde map 2, on the other hand, is remarkably intricate with incredible variation. There's 3 levels of verticality and excellent circular navigability within each of the 2 wings. My issue is with the space. Trepang is faster than F.e.a.r, it's safe to say. You practically break the sound barrier when you slide, and this combined with not entirely reliable vaulting meant I spent far too much time running into things in Horde Map 2. It's not that the space is wrong, it's just too cramped to frequently allow the most action-packed expressions of Trepang's gameplay. Titanfall 2, I think, showed us that not every space needs to be an arena, even if it hosts combat. That game gained a lot simply by being so consistently fresh and interesting. Creative level design was something we saw too in F.e.a.r. It's vital to have great arenas, but it's also great to have interesting encounters too. In the 20-minute prologue, I saw a stairway fight, and I saw a unique arena that featured a central dip. A solid display, though I will say that this isn't really tough enough to work as a final fight, because there's not that many enemies and you know exactly where they'll be. The fact that an experience this tight is free, that's worthy of applause and attention. I didn't think that a project like this would be possible for an indie team, but here we are. I'm exceptionally excited for the finished product, though naturally, I got a few suggestions. I throw enemies all the time, but only because it looks cool. The body almost never goes where the crosshair is pointed, so of the 350,000 times I've thrown someone, I hit someone else, maybe once? On the topic of grabs, I do think using the pistol for the kill animation if you have it equipped would be a nice touch. When an enemy is downed, the process of them standing up is pretty much busted. It'll routinely have them teleport even into the air, which results in missed headshots, damaged immersion, and worst of all, accidentally picking up another weapon when you want it to grab. What's broken needs fixing, but I also think grab and swap should be two separate controls to prevent frustration. If you're planning to melee a downed enemy instead, it is a lot more reliable. The catch is, it looks even worse. Rifle butting someone over a meter below you is just off. Dying Light managed this with a kick, so I'm hoping for something along those lines. I'll also say that grenades need improving. It's good that they don't roll too much, but they also don't bounce very well, so getting a grenade round a corner can be extremely unreliable. Enemies do indeed use grenades too, but I found they rarely threw accurately enough for the explosion to be much of a concern. As for some more abstract ideas, I don't think the combat mechanics are in need of anything more. They've nailed it. What's lacking is lacking because the game's not done yet. We need more weapons, more enemies, more levels. But I won't lie, the potential gets me thinking. The slide is incredibly powerful, but it has a preset range of maybe 8 or 9 meters, which is a good thing for now, but what if you could trade off your forward momentum for a kick? Say you were sliding through a group, and you melee a specific one. Instead of a weak-ass rifle butt, you deliver the kick of a Greek god, sending them flying faster than light. But you'd also have your speed set to 0. And let's also say this could only be activated at least 4 meters into the slide to prevent exploits. Shorter slide, that could lead to exposure for a much stronger melee. It fits with the action focus and it presents interesting decisions. Another, more experimental idea would be a launchpad mechanic. Often when I'd play this game's horde mode, I would wish I could jump a little higher coming out of a slide, perhaps even high enough to get me into the second floor windows on map 2. It would allow you to keep the chain of badass moments going for even longer, and I think the smartest way of implementing it is the same way Dying Light did. Use enemies as a launch pad. That way you can't abuse it, and there's a trade-off. You might put yourself in a more dangerous situation, and you can't damage an enemy if you're leaping off them. Imagine sliding into a group, launching off the final one, and turning around mid-air in reflex mode to light up the guys behind you. With those out there, the rest of my suggestions are rather obvious. We need more weapons, we need more enemies. As of now, we have a shotgun, a pistol, an SMG, and 2 assault rifles which I cannot tell the difference between. All very good fun, but also very standard. Introducing a sniper or another kind of automatic weapon makes sense, but will it really change the way you play? There's no good reason the weapon choice should ever not be an interesting decision, and it's always good for a campaign to have interesting weapons flat out. Gimmick weapons and power weapons are good ideas if managed correctly. Wouldn't want a situation where you consistently have a huge amount of ammo for a one-shot weapon like the particle weapon in F.e.a.r. Enemies, meanwhile, boil down to standard replica, shield replica, blood zombies, and heavies. Blood zombies are just intoxicated versions of normal replica, so discounting them, that's a total of 3. Not bad. And sure, they do require different approaches. You gotta use an ability or careful aiming to get past the shield. And there's an explosive barrel strapped to the back of the heavies that can lead to multiple different tactics, including using the explosion against other enemies. I hope to see as much expansion as possible. The replica assassins were as good as it got in F.e.a.r. The use of invisibility, the way they stalked you, the horror had a major influence on how you played. Being genuinely scared of something you're meant to kill, that's a unique experience. Even if Trepang isn't going down the F.e.a.r. route in terms of atmosphere, I think given the player's power, enemies with abstract abilities would add a great deal. So there we have it. The core of those FPS titans we adored so long ago is back. You can play it today. Unreal Engine 4's ability to give indie developers the opportunity to make AAA products cannot be understated. This is an incredible thing, and I wish it all the success in the world. If you'd like to help make that happen, then keep aware. Chuck it on your Steam wishlist, pray to your god, keep updated on their Discord server. There's more to the game than I covered in this video, but you probably won't find it. It'll find you. I feel like I got my money's worth from Trepang, but I didn't even spend the price of an FPS. I spent nothing. For that, I got 8 hours of enjoyment, and the confidence that if this game continues on the path it's on, it will outdo F.e.a.r and Crysis both. Before we finish, I have a question to ask. Can you relate to this game? Are you in need of means to escape a super secret military base in the middle of nowhere? Let's be honest, probably. I regret to inform you, you probably don't have superpowers, so obviously, you'll need a website. And boy, do I know a particular easy-to-use website creation tool named after a fat square that could help you with that. You're gonna need to quickly and reliably communicate information. It sure is convenient that Squarespace allows you to schedule posts to release at specific times, and has community features for conversing with the outside world. That also sounds pretty useful for the developers of this game. I think people looking to make an online hub for their project would love social media functionality, blog integration, merch store management, and loads of easy ways to provide updates. It's truly incredible just how simple Squarespace makes this process for the depth they simultaneously provide. Your website can look and function professionally in hours. If you'd like to help the channel and finally make that website you've been thinking about, then slide on over to Squarespace for a free trial. Be sure you go to squarespace.com/whitelight to let them know I sent you, and get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.